Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
For context, I live with my wife and daughter. I own a few acres in Geauga County, Ohio. My property is on an interstate directly across the street from a state park. It's a decently sized park with a couple of lakes and abundant, albeit fairly generic, wildlife. Deer, raccoons, coyotes, opossums, foxes, and beavers are not uncommon for me to see. Be me. Late summer 2022, chatting with some friends on my PC. My dog starts going crazy in the backyard. She is a black 60-ish pound Beagle Lab mix and is usually a very quiet, non-vocal dog, so her hollering has me a bit alarmed. Go check it out. Wearing my wireless headphones that have pretty decent range throughout my house, so I can continue talking to my friends. Inform them about what I'm doing so we can pause our heated conversation. Expect to encounter a raccoon or a possum since I recently lost a couple chickens to a nocturnal predator. So I grab the double-barrel 12-gauge break action fun gun I keep above the back door. Open my back door and see my dog barking with her back to me. We are illuminated by my motion-sensitive floodlights that do a decent job of lighting up a 30-yard radius of my deck and surrounding yard and woods. I tell her to calm down. She keeps barking. Almost ignoring that I'm even there, she's just barking her furry face off at a lone bush about 10 yards away from my back door. As I'm telling her to shush, I see what I can only describe as the top hemisphere of a volleyball poking up from behind the bush. It was bright white and almost fuzzy from the floodlights. As soon as my brain is capable of saying WTF, it violently jerks downward, fully obstructing itself from us with the bush. I am still thinking in terms of raccoons, opossum, maybe even deer. I'm still trying to process what this is, but I already know that it has nowhere to go without exposing itself to me. There are only two options for egress. One, up the nearest tree, which is 5 yards to the right of the bush, and still another 80 feet from the ground to the first branch. Two, directly away from the house up a hill fully exposed. My dog's jimmies are fully rustled, barking non-stop at the bush like, "Shoot the bush I'm barking at, you dipshit!" Shoulder the shotgun. Headset begins squealing, knock the cans off my ears, and the headset neatly wraps around my neck, still shrieking but not directly into my ear. Quickly think about how it is going to suck to discharge this 12 gauge without any kind of ear pro. Screw it, .jpg. Push the bush. Floodlights begin flickering, headset screeching. As the lights and noise crescendo, I clear the left side of the bush. Headset stops. Floodlights stop. Dog stops but is still noticeably upset. Scratch my head for a second and look around. Nothing. Nothing in the closest trees. Nothing inside the bush. Whatever it was, it had no means of leaving the cover of the bush without being fully exposed to me. The ground directly behind the bush is noticeably lower than in front. Then it hits me. Now I realize that whatever it is had to have been at least as tall as me to clear the height of the bush from where it was standing in this depression behind the bush. Dog whines. I'm now hearing how deafeningly quiet it is. These woods are usually alive with the sound of insects and amphibians. Still scanning for details. Soft, loamy soil behind the bush. No tracks. Nothing. My hair is standing straight up. I can feel something profoundly foreign and primal screaming in the back of my mind. I don't just feel like I'm being watched. I know that I'm being watched. Take one last look around, expecting to see my neighbor standing right behind me or something equally off-putting. More nothing. Get my dog and take her back inside. From me walking outside to going back inside was about 45 seconds, maybe 1 minute. When I shut the door, I heard my wife ask, "What was all that about?" While putting the gun away, I told her that the dog was barking at something and there was a brownout. My daughter says my iPad turned off and it wasn't even plugged in, so how could it be a brownout? I instinctively pull my phone out of my pocket and can see that it's turned off. Turn it on, 87% charge. I asked to see my wife's phone. Same thing, but her battery was in the 60s. I realize my headset is turned off too. Turn it on, hear my friends talking. They tell me that they could hear everything, including the screeching, then abruptly nothing. Experience 2, Be Me. Late February 2023, about 1:30 a.m., full moon. There had been some rain the previous evening that had frozen, and a nice light layer of flurries topped it off like powdered sugar, making the evening even brighter than normal. I log off my PC and start tiptoeing to my bedroom to not wake everyone. Out of my dining room window, I can very clearly see up that previously mentioned hill into the woods. As I pass that window, I glance out and see what I immediately assume to be my dog running towards the house at full speed. My immediate thought is, oh shit, I left my damn dog outside. Jesus Christ, how could you be such a terrible dog owner, Anon? My second thought is, thankfully you turned off the security light switch when you let her out so you don't wake the rooster up. I get my phone out of my pocket and turn on the flashlight. As I open the door, my third thought is, I'm pretty sure I let her back in the house. Then my phone light lands upon something that doesn't look right at all. It looks like a photonegative star, that's the best way I can describe it. It looks like long magnetic solar prominences emanating from its surface, waving and undulating all over the place, almost like tentacles, but not. Whatever it is pitch black, even with the light shining directly on it. It is casting an observable shadow. This thing is in part of my yard that is directly adjacent to my deck. It is full of small river rocks punctuated by some stepping stones so it isn't noisy to walk on. As soon as the light hits this thing, these prominences almost explode from it, and I hear the cacophonous crunching of the ice-covered river rocks under its heft as it moves. I could hear exactly how far it went and where it stopped. It took the shortest path available clearly in an effort to break my line of sight. This placed it behind the corner of my deck about 10 feet from where I'm standing. It got to the corner and hasn't moved. Armed with only my phone light, I muster all the testosterone I have and bolt over the deck railing, hoping to catch whatever this was off guard. Nothing. Look around. Snow and ice completely undisturbed. No tracks. What the absolute hell? To this day, I have no idea what I was going to do if it was there waiting for me behind the corner of the deck. I have no good reason for trying to rush it either. I wasn't even recording a video or anything useful. I just rushed it with my phone light. Essentially, I just went full commando, threatening the entity. Go back inside, see dog on couch, try to sleep. Pick related is my attempt to show a rough layout of my deck, backyard, and woods. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. Any insight would be helpful. I'm pretty lost here and haven't brought this up with anyone, including my wife.
Go to a friend's house one day. Lives with his dad, mom, and 11 out of 10 sister. Always instinctively look up at his 11 out of 10 sister's window because she's normally there, sees me, and she gets him to come to the door. Walk in his gate, a big gate that you have to close after you. Look up at the window. 11 out of 10 is not there, but their mom is. Wave to her. She doesn't wave back, she just stares at me. I hope I haven't turned up in the middle of a domestic situation. Turn around and close the gate. Turn back around and his mom has already opened the front door. Greets me warmly and is as cheerful as she ever is. Look up at 11 out of 10 window. No one there. His mom apologizes that she's just on her way out and friend isn't home. Tells me I'm welcome to sit in and wait for him in his room if I want to because he shouldn't be long. Ask her if his dad will mind if I chill with him until the friend gets back instead. He wouldn't, but he isn't home. Ask if 11 out of 10 is home. Nope, it's just her right now. Have to ask her how she got downstairs so fast. Looks totally puzzled. Asks me again if I want to wait for him because she has to get going. Tell her I'll just wait in the street for him because it's a nice day. I've known them all for years. It wasn't uncommon for me to be in their house by myself. But that was the first time anything spooky happened. Things happened after that for a while and then just stopped. It was weird, but only me and friends seemed unnerved by any of it.
Okay, I guess I'll tell one of my few interesting stories. Basically, this is how carbon monoxide poisoning messed me up, and how I believe it has a stronger or even paranormal impact on the human brain than what most science thinks. 16 at the time of happening. Autistic and a little emotional, but nothing actually crazy. Live in a rundown house. Not really that bad, but everything in it was old and half broken. Winter, freezing cold outside. Turn on the heater so I don't turn into a popsicle. One of those old gas heaters, the kind that insurance companies refuse to cover anymore. Have a pet snake that basically requires me to keep the house warmish 24/7. Decide I want to take a shower one day. Leave the heater on so the snake friend doesn't die. Showering. Using very hot water. Lots of steam and humidity in the bathroom after a while. Air starts to feel thinner, like it's getting hard to breathe. Think it's just me, so I get out of the shower and sit down on the toilet. Collapse unconscious. Wake up 2 seconds later after head hit the floor. Try to scream, but lungs feel empty. Entire body is cold, quaking. Cannot stand up for more than 3 seconds without falling unconscious and waking up on the floor again. Desperately scramble across the bathroom. Somehow in the moment I think, if I stab myself, I'll be more awake. Stab self in the arm with a big razor. Slightly more awake. Can barely walk now, but it's so difficult. Stumble out of the bathroom. Jump out of an open window with no clothes on. Call 911 after I hobble back inside and throw pants on. Doctor basically says my heater went funky, and it combined with the humidity of the room almost asphyxiated me. So now that I got the preamble out of the way, I can talk about the interesting parts. Get a new heater unit, blah blah. Heart and lungs feel weak and dying for the next 3 months. First week is a constant draining pain. Go to sleep for the first night after. Flashback of me in the bathroom, struggling again. This time I see a figure standing over me and staring at me. It is in the shape of a slim woman with long hair. No details, just a black shape. Get pissed off and try to attack her. She vanishes. Feel cold woman-shaped hands grabbing at feet. They are dragging me down. I grab the razor and cut at the black hands. Wake up. Ever since this, I have had this woman infest almost all of my dreams, either as the main antagonist in a nightmare or in the background of normally good dreams. There's just this cold, empty, I want to give up feeling when I look at her. 2 weeks after the incident. Round a corner in my house. See the shadow woman for a few seconds before my brain seemingly corrects it. This becomes more and more common and stops just being the shadow woman. Amalgamations of flesh that look like giant faces, white glowing figures. This is now a daily problem, and at least once a day I'll get one of these corner sightings. I would just call myself a schizo, but I've heard of other people seeing this shadow woman too.
This took place in southern Brazil, in the state of Paraná in 2021. A brief summary of how I ended up in this situation. In 2020 I discovered I had cancer, so I had surgery, chemo, for a few months. I finished treatment in 2021, I was in the bath and felt something strange. The surgery site had ruptured after 5 months and was oozing pus and blood. I despaired. My father has a quarry, with an open mine of about 120 meters in diameter and 20 meters deep. It is a place far from the city, about 8 kilometers, in the middle of the woods, and with some family farms nearby. Well, I loved the place and decided to go there to think about what to do. I was afraid to restart the treatment. Afraid that maybe the cancer had come back with a vengeance. There is the place where the crushing plant used to be, exactly where the trucks unloaded to the grinder. To take advantage of the force of gravity, it is located on the slope of a ravine about 30 or 40 meters high with an incredible view of the horizon. I parked my truck there and lay on top of it and watched the shooting stars. I don't know exactly how many hours later, but it should have been something like midnight. I hear footsteps slowly coming towards me. I was armed with a pistol, but I left it inside and I was in the back of the truck. All I had was a piece of wood lying there. At that time I was scared of this being a criminal, as we had problems with thieves stealing machine parts and parts. But this individual came right from the side of the cliff and it was impossible for anyone to walk up. I even went back to check it later. My second thought was that it was a jaguar. Because I had been lying down for a long time, whether I was a jaguar or a criminal, it might have thought that I had fallen asleep. As the steps got closer, I deduced that it was already on my side. I looked without moving my head and I didn't see anything that was the height of a person. So I jumped with the piece of wood and screamed because it had to be an animal. Then I saw something I'd never seen anything like before, and I got goosebumps just writing about it. It was a human figure, completely dark brown. It had no eyes, no mouth, and no ears. It looked like thick smoke. It walked very clumsily, as if twisting. When I jumped, it still hadn't finished climbing. I froze. It finished the climb. It passed by my side, about a meter away. When I jumped up and screamed, it did absolutely nothing. It passed by me and followed the opposite path I took to get there, left the road, and entered the forest. I retrieved the gun from inside the truck. It walked for a while and came out again in the clearing. It started moving towards me. The night was very clear, with an almost full moon. When it got nearer as it came towards me, I started shooting. I shot 10 times. I remembered that I still had 12 rounds because when I arrived I fired a few shots. I landed all the shots as it approached. It didn't do anything, it didn't seem to hit anything. At that distance I never missed. Then it stopped and went back into the bush. The rest of the night it walked in a semicircle about 50 meters from me, into the woods, out on the clearing, and into the woods on the other side. When dawn came it entered the forest, and I could hear footsteps in the distance. I grew up there, I know every inch of it. I'm 32 years old, my childhood and youth were spent walking around there, going into the forest. You've never seen anything like it. When I asked my father he just said that it wasn't good to go there alone at night because there's something strange. He had come that early morning because they were looking for me since I had left without warning and left my cell phone at home. He figured I would be there.
I have one that sounds pretty ridiculous, but I guess this is the right place. Be me. My cousin who is of a similar age and lived with his mother his whole life gets to live with my mom's brother, his father, when he turns 13. I'm about 14 years old. My uncle does a lot of work with Aboriginal kids. This is in Australia, and he gets to rent a 150-year-old homestead while they fix the place and surrounding land up in the day for using the place to teach them about their culture. Arrive there to spend the week with my cousin. Shit is cash money, we explore all day. Cousin says he thinks the place is haunted. Pool.jpg. Later that night myself, my cousin and his stepbrother are sleeping on 3 different mattresses in a room at the other end of the house to my uncle and his partner. My cousin has a PSP which I never had, so I'm playing some Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai. Shit is cash money, I'm Trunks battling Android 17. A tiny fly flies onto the screen. Brushes fly away. The light from the PSP is the only light in the house, so off bugs will annoy me. More tiny flies come. More tiny flies come. Screen is completely covered in swarming flies. They are flying in my face, going into my mouth. I am choking on flies. It's -5 degrees outside and all the windows are obviously closed. Rural New South Wales during winter gets so cold it snows. Turn off PSP and throw it beside the mattress and hide under a blanket. Sound of swarming lessens, but something is not right. There is a faint orb of light floating around the ceiling. Hear the sound of something with sharp nails running up and down in the ceiling. While we have possums that are basically like raccoons, this thing reminded me of what my grandmother sounded when she was walking around. She's a 130-kilo woman, but very fast and with claws. A dark figure casually strolls into the room and walks around the mattresses looking for something. I'm pretending to be asleep while feeling Lovecraftian dread. I'm so frightened I assume I passed out. Morningtime.jpg. Everyone else is up having breakfast. There are no flies anywhere despite me coughing them up and definitely killing some. I pick up the PSP. The PSP turns out to have a sleep mode only off button, so I didn't turn off the console the night before. It is exactly in the middle of the fight between Trunks and the android where I tossed it away. This is how I know it was real. We hanged around with that place a bit, but that was the most hectic thing that happened to me. I got sleep paralysis really badly afterwards, which honestly was probably light PTSD or trauma or something. Turns out a bug collector lived in that homestead though.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.